The old folks of Hollow Creek whispered of a curse that had plagued their town for generations, passed down through hushed conversations and fearful glances. They spoke of the blood moon, a crimson orb that hung heavy in the sky every century. It was said to be a harbinger of doom, a celestial event that brought with it a night of unspeakable horrors, a night of crimson and shadow, a night of terror. The blood moon's eerie glow would cast long, sinister shadows, transforming the familiar landscape into a realm of nightmares. Legend had it, on this night, the veil between the living and the dead thinned to a whisper. The boundary that kept the spirits at bay would dissolve, allowing the restless souls to roam freely, and the restless souls, stained with the blood of their demise, would walk the earth again. These spirits, bound by their tragic ends, sought vengeance or closure, their presence a chilling reminder of the past. Their whispers spoke of a horrific massacre, a night when the town was engulfed in chaos and the streets ran red with blood. The blood moon's influence drove people to madness, turning friends into foes. A night of madness under the blood moon, where neighbor turned on neighbor. The bonds of community shattered, replaced by suspicion and violence. The air was thick with the cries of the betrayed and the dying. The air grew thick with the stench of iron and fear. Then, silence. The aftermath was a haunting stillness, as if the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next horror to unfold. The townsfolk swore the victims haunted the town, their souls bound to the blood moon, forever seeking peace. These spectral figures would appear on the anniversary of the massacre, their mournful wails echoing through the night. But these were just stories, tales spun to explain the unexplainable, to give shape to the fears that lurked in the dark corners of the mind. Fairy tales to keep children indoors at night, or so everyone thought. Yet, as the blood moon rose once more, the line between myth and reality began to blur, and the town of Hollow Creek braced itself for another night of terror. Mark and Lisa, along with their teenage daughter Emily, dismissed the stories as folklore. City dwellers escaping the urban jungle, they sought solace in Hollow Creek's tranquil facade. Their new home, a charming Victorian house perched atop a hill overlooking the town, held the promise of a fresh start.
This place is beautiful, isn't it, Mark? Just what we needed.
Absolutely, Lisa. A fresh start for all of us.
I don't know. There's something weird about this place.
They paid no heed to the warnings of their new neighbors. The hushed tones and worried glances meant nothing. They were just stories. Nothing could spoil the peace they had found. The peace didn't last. It started subtly, a chill in the air even as the sun blazed, the unsettling feeling of being watched. Then the nightmares began. Vivid, blood-soaked dreams plagued their sleep. Then came the physical signs. Dead birds on their doorstep, their tiny bodies twisted at unnatural angles, a child's laughter echoing in the dead of night, and the handprints, bloody handprints marring the pristine white walls of their home. The town's whispers grew louder, carried on the wind that seemed to moan through the trees. The blood moon was approaching. The night arrived cloaked in a chilling silence, a silence so profound it seemed to swallow every sound, every whisper of the wind. The moon, an ominous crimson orb, dominated the sky, casting long, eerie shadows that danced with the wind's chilling breath. It was as if the very heavens were bleeding, a harbinger of the terror that was to come. Inside their home, the family huddled together, their faces illuminated by the flickering candlelight. The air was thick with fear and anticipation.
Don't worry, I'll board up the windows. We need to make sure nothing can get in. We'll be safe in here. This house has stood for generations. It will protect us tonight.
Stay close, Emily. Everything will be all right. We'll get through this together, just like we always do.
Mum, I'm scared. What if something happens to us? What if the stories are true? What if the legends about the blood moon are real?
The old grandfather clock chimed 8, each clang resonating like a death knell. The sound echoed through the house, amplifying the tension in the room. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the pounding of their hearts. Each beat seemed louder than the last, a reminder of their fragile mortality. Suddenly, a low hum vibrated through the house, It started as a faint whisper, barely noticeable, but quickly grew in intensity. It grew louder, morphing into a blood-curdling scream that seemed to claw at the very walls of their home. The nightmare had begun. The walls shook and the air grew colder, as if the house itself was reacting to the terror outside. The family clung to each other, their eyes wide with fear, knowing that this night would test their courage like never before. Blood seeped from the walls, staining the wallpaper crimson. Whispers, cold and menacing, swirled around them, chanting their names in haunting unison.
What is happening? This can't be real.
Stay close, everyone. We need to find a way out of here.
Furniture moved, as if possessed by an unseen force, crashing against the walls. A cold wind whipped through the house, extinguishing their single source of light.
I'm scared, Dad. What do we do?
Fear, raw and primal, gripped their hearts. They were trapped in a nightmare, the legend of the blood moon coming to life around them. Emily, her eyes wide with terror, clung to her parents, her small hand clutching her father's arm for dear life. Desperate for answers, Mark found himself in the attic, a place he had rarely ventured into. The air was thick with dust, and the dim light barely illuminated the cluttered space. He was driven by an unexplainable urge to uncover something, anything, that could shed light on the mysteries that had been plaguing his mind. As he moved aside old boxes and forgotten relics, his hand brushed against a hidden compartment. The wood creaked as he pried it open, revealing a space untouched for decades. Inside, he found a dusty old diary, its leather cover cracked and worn with age. The sight of it sent a shiver down his spine, as if it held secrets long buried. He opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with frantic scribbles. The handwriting was hurried, almost desperate, as if the writer was racing against time.
This diary, it's from a century ago. The words, they're horrifying. They speak of events too terrible to imagine, things that should have never happened.
The diary belonged to a young woman who lived in the house a century ago. Her life, once filled with hope and dreams, had taken a dark turn. Her words painted a horrifying picture, a tale of betrayal, jealousy, and a massacre committed under the blood moon. The vivid descriptions made Mark's blood run cold. The blood moon, a rare celestial event, had driven the townsfolk to madness. Under its eerie red glow, they turned on each other in a frenzy of violence.
The townsfolk, they turned on each other. Friends became enemies. Neighbors became foes. The madness spread like wildfire. Driven mad by the blood moon's influence, they slaughtered their neighbors. The once peaceful town was transformed into a scene of chaos and bloodshed.
The young woman her family brutally murdered was the last one alive. She hid in the attic, documenting the horrors unfolding around her. Her final entries were filled with fear and despair. She wrote of the screams, the blood, and the overwhelming sense of doom that hung over the town. Her final entry spoke of a ritual, a way to appease the vengeful spirits and break the curse. She believed it was the only way to end the madness and bring peace to the restless souls. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Mark raced back to his family.
They were trapped, the house a prison of their own fear.
The entities, their forms solidifying in the flickering candlelight, circled them. Their eyes, burning like hot coals, held a depth of pain and anger that chilled them to the bone.
The air grew thick with the smell of blood and decay.
The whispering intensified, morphing into guttural screams that seemed to tear at their sanity. They were running out of time.
The ritual was their only hope.
But fear had paralyzed Lisa and Mark. It was Emily, surprisingly, who stepped forward. She had a strange sense of calm, a knowledge that seemed to emanate from the diary itself.
She approached the most distinct figure, a young woman with sorrowful eyes and a blood-soaked dress.
"You want peace?" Emily whispered, her voice surprisingly steady. The spirit reached out, her touch icy cold, yet strangely comforting. Through a series of images flashed into Emily's mind, she understood. The ritual wasn't about banishing, it was about remembering. Following the instructions from the spirit, the family gathered in the heart of the house. They lit candles, each flame representing a lost soul.
Emily, her voice filled with newfound strength, recounted the story from the diary. She spoke of their lives, their loves, their hopes and dreams, giving voice to their silenced memories.
As Emily spoke, the shadows began to recede. The whispering softened, replaced by a mournful yet peaceful melody. The temperature rose, the icy grip on their hearts loosening. Tears streamed down their faces, a mixture of terror and relief. They were not crying alone. The spirits, their forms shimmering, wept with them. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, the spirits vanished. The house was silent, save for the gentle chirping of birds outside. The nightmare was over. The family, forever marked by their encounter, packed their belongings and left Hollow Creek. But the legend of the blood moon lived on, a chilling reminder of the night the dead walked and the family that faced them. And every time the moon turned a bloody crimson, the residents of Hollow Creek would remember, and they would whisper, and they would pray.